Please start.
So the base, the face, and the cranial vault. What we are concerned with is the cranial vault, which is comprises of the two parietal bones, the two parts of the frontal bone, and the squamous part of the occipital bone. We have the sagittal suture in the middle. We have the anterior fontanelle, which is kite-shaped or rhomboidal, with four, which is membranous. This is very well appreciated when we do a PV examination in labor, with four sutures emerging. That is how we identify it in labor. And the posterior fontanelle, which is triradiate, like a Mercedes Benz, it does not have any membranous gap. That is how we identify it. So,
Ask everyone to mute their audio, ma'am. We can
please
hear.
mute your audio.
Ma'am, everyone is on mute
We can hear someone speak, Swati.
Okay.
because
Okay.
they cannot change the setting. Everyone is on mute.
All
Okay.
right, all
All
right. So here we have the biparietal diameter, which is 9.5 centimeters. Now let us consider the various diameters which come into play in an vertex presentation. This is the vertex, as you all know very well. This part, quadrangular part, is the vertex. So we have the occipitofrontal diameter, which is pretty wide, 11.5 centimeters. As flexion progresses, it goes to suboccipitofrontal. This is suboccipitofrontal, which is 10 centimeters. And with further flexion, we have the suboccipitobregmatic, which goes from the suboccipit to the midpoint of the anterior fontanelle, which is considered as the bregma. So this is very important. The face comes into play in a face presentation. How is it different from the vertex? If we see the diameters, the ultimate diameter of engagement of the face is also 9.4, the submentobregmatic. The submentobregmatic. Then why are we afraid of a face presentation in labor? Why are we afraid? Why are we so happy when it is a vertex presentation? That is because the face is an irregular part. It does not fit well into the cervix. Be premature or early or premature rupture of membranes, cord prolapse, and so forth and so on. And besides, the fibrous bones of the face cannot mold, unlike the vault bones, which can override each other, and molding can occur to reduce the diameters in favor of labor. The base does not concern us, so we forget about it. So with this little knowledge, let us proceed with mechanism of labor. In mechanism of labor, we must know the various positions. The occiput is the denominator. We have various positions, the LOA, the ROA, the ROT, and of course, you start with even LOT. Now, these are the normal positions, for normal labor, all right? Posterior are null positions. They are not good for labor. Now, why is anterior good? Why is anterior occiput good in labor? Why is it more frequent in nature? That is because the convexity of the fetal spine sits very comfortably in the soft concavity of the maternal abdomen. And because the back is flexed like this, the head is also well flexed. If the back is straight, the head will not alone get well flexed like this. It will also remain deflexed. So, they say in life we come with flexion, and ultimately when we leave this earth, we also go in flexion when we are bent. So, in flexion we come. We are humble when we come into this world. So, that is very, very important. So, but if the back is posterior, the maternal spine hits against the fetal spine. And what happens? The fetus is not comfortable. So the back extends. So when the fetal back extends, the head also extends, which is really not good for labor. Deficient flexion does not proceed well in labor. So let us now go to the mechanism of labor. For our ease, we shall consider LOA position. Okay? Very quickly, I'm going to tell you, not as I would tell the PG students or undergraduates. We have the LOA position. To start with, the head may not be very well flexed. So a bigger diameter is there. With the force of the uterine contractions, which are actually retractions, and shorten the muscle fiber of the upper segment so that the head even starts to descend. So with the onset of labor, there is a descent and there is gradual increase in the flexion of the head. It goes on descending as the labor pains progress, and ultimately it touches the pelvic floor. When it touches the pelvic floor has got a peculiar configuration. It is like a gutter, which is sloping downwards, forwards, and medially. So whichever fetal part touches the pelvic floor first, by Hart's rule, rotates internally in this fashion. And this is exactly what happens. The head rotates internally. So with full flexion, the diameter which comes into play is the suboccipital which I told you is 9.5 centimeters. All right. And even the cavity is circular, which measures 12 centimeters. So the round in round turns easily. So good flexion is very important for internal rotation to occur. So internal rotation occurs in this way.
Are they able to see the question?
Are you able to see me?
Yes, ma'am, clearly. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
It's clear.
Vaidik, can you hold the
Sure,
pelvis
ma'am.
for
Yes,
me this
yes,
way?
yes.
Right. So when there is an internal rotation, can you appreciate that the body does not turn? It's only the neck which has twisted. So there is a twist in the neck. All right. And when it is pushed further down, it comes into the outlet. The outlet is deficient anteriorly. And with the recoil, there is an extension of the head. And the head gets disengaged. There is a twist till it gets disengaged. Once it is free with the extension, it falls like this and the twist is undone, which is called restitution. By this time, the anterior shoulder touches the pelvic floor and it also rotates internally. Can you see? The depiction of the internal rotation of the shoulder is by the external rotation of the fetal head. At this point in time, the anterior shoulder presents just below the pubic symphysis. The posterior shoulder distends the perineum. And with further contractions and retractions, by lateral flexion, the fetus, the baby, let us call it a baby now, the baby is delivered out. So this is the mechanism of labor as we teach you all in your classrooms. But we have to be aware of whatever is happening during the mechanism of labor in order to manage the case in the labor room. So let us see, per abdomen, how can we make out that this is the movement which is occurring? So let us examine the patient per abdomen. She's in labor. She's getting very good contractions. It is an LOA position. The head is not yet engaged. About 1/5 is down into the pelvis. With further contractions, the head slips into the pelvis. So you can see 1/5, then 4/5. Only 1/5 has gone. So in other words, 4/5 is palpable. Then 3/5 is palpable. Then 2/5 may be palpable. Then 1/5 only may be palpable. 1/5 is when only the sinciput is palpable. 2/5 is when the occiput and the sinciput are still palpable. When it reaches this stage, the head is engaged because the maximum diameters have entered into the pelvis. So per abdomen itself, we have made out flexion and descent, which is going on. All right. Now at this stage, there is now an internal rotation. The internal rotation occurs. How can we make out per abdomen? When we have an internal rotation, you see the anterior shoulder will move towards the opposite side, which we can appreciate per abdomen. And the fetal heart also, from the more lateral aspect, gets localized here, and you can hear it well. So internal rotation has occurred, right? So far the labor has been progressing very well. But now this was the abdominal part. Now let us talk of the vaginal part. For that, let me take the skull of the pelvis to be able to show you well. So this is the skull. The head is still very much at the brim, and we are doing a PV with our sensitive fingers. When we do a PV, if we are able to feel this rhomboidal anterior fontanelle, the sagittal suture, and the posterior fontanelle quite high up, difficult to reach, we know that this head is deflexed. We know that the head is deflexed. With further pains, with labor is better established, this anterior fontanelle goes up, up, up. And this Mercedes sign comes into play. We can feel the posterior fontanelle with the triradiate sutures. So this tells us that yes, the labor is progressing well. With this, dilatation also occurs because this grasps the cervix, fits into the cervix well, and the cervix starts dilating well. So this is what is important, and we assess per the ischial spines are supposed to be the zero station, all right? So when it is engaged, it is at -1, then at zero station, and as it descends further, it goes into the plus stations, all right? So when it touches the pelvic floor, now we'll find that rotation has started to occur, and rotation occurs in this way, and the sagittal suture comes in the AP diameter, and the posterior fontanelle comes anteriorly. So this is how far we have reached, that internal rotation has occurred. The shoulder has not rotated, but the shoulder also will rotate simultaneously on top. One thing at this juncture I would like to explain to you, which is very important when we follow up a case in labor, and that is the asynclitism or synclitism. Now when you see this head, all right, you see that the sagittal suture is in the middle of the two parietal bones. If the sagittal suture goes anteriorly or posteriorly, this is called asynclitism. All right. Now, this asynclitism comes into play when there is an inlet contraction. And by this method of asynclitism, the head enters into the pelvic brim. Now, how does that happen? If I want to pass through a widely open door, I will come out like this. But if the door is narrow, not fully open, I'll have to twist and turn and come out. So that is very important. And if there is an inlet contraction, then what happens? The head cannot enter nicely, so it has to twist and turn. So what happens here? We have a biparietal diameter, which is 9.5 centimeters. But when the head tilts like this, okay? When the head tilts like this, the diameter which comes into play is, if I can show you here this way, let us show you here this way, it comes super subparietal diameter, okay? The super subparietal diameter, right? Subparietal on this side and supraparietal on this side. This measures only 8.5 centimeters. It is 1 centimeter less, and that is very advantageous for the head to slip in, provided there is no major inlet CPD. So in a minor inlet CPD, by making this quick turn, anterior, posterior, it dips into the pelvis. All right? But every time this asynclitism is not so easy that it happens quickly and the head goes in. What happens is that, let us first tell you what is anterior and what is posterior asynclitism. If this is if the head is tilting like this to come in, all right? What is happening? The anterior parietal bone is lower, and this is what is called as anterior parietal bone presentation or anterior asynclitism or Niggles obliquity. If it is tilting this way, then it is posterior parietal bone presentation or Litzmann's obliquity. Now, Vaidya, can you please go?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So, when we have an anterior parietal bone presentation, can you see the head is in the line of the axis, and therefore it is propitious for labor. On the other hand, when there is a
क्या देख रहे हो?
posterior symphysis pubis, so there is no descent. So therefore, in labor, if you feel an anterior parietal bone presentation, it is propitious. It will do well most probably. But if you find a posterior parietal bone presentation, which on a repeat PV after some time again shows that it is a posterior parietal bone presentation, it is called a persistent parietal bone presentation, posterior parietal bone presentation, and is not good for labor. In fact, it becomes an indication for a cesarean section. So these subtle things need to be demonstrated, need to be palpated in order to enjoy what obstetrics really is.
Yes.
So this is asynclitism. Now a little word about the head going further down. The head has gone further down, and this is the introitus. All right. Earlier, can you pull this up and down? Early, see, you can see the head, but in between the contractions, you cannot see the head. But after some time, even in between the contractions, the scalp is seen. This is known as crowning. And we are very happy that yes, very soon my patient is going to deliver. But this so-called crowning may not be the real crowning. Is it clear to you?
Yes.
So sometimes you can feel the fetal scalp very much at the introitus, but there is no progress. The patient yells, screams, bears down, but there is no progress. The head does not progress down. What is the reason? There you have to think that you have missed an occipito-posterior position.
Right.
All right. And inadvertently, you should not try to apply a suction cup. All right. You should not apply a suction cup. In an occipito-posterior, as I will be telling you later, the occiput is at a low level and it distends, and the patient bears down because of the rectal pressure. Okay. And there is what is called as a jam pot molding. The head is still palpable by abdomen if you palpate it like this. So when you reach this, there is a tapered on top of that, making it difficult for you to identify the sutures and the fontanelles. So it is good to put a catheter and then try to feel whether any part of the head is palpable. If any part of the head is palpable, please do not try an instrumental delivery. If you apply a suction cup, it's going to fail, cause trauma. So whenever you go for an instrumental delivery, be it forceps for an epiposition or be it a ventouse for an unrotated head, see that no part of the fetal head is palpable per abdomen.
Yes, very important.
Okay.
Yeah.
And last but not the least, when the head is about to deliver, an extension is to occur. The mother is bearing down, right? And ultimately the head will deliver by extension. Is that clear to you? When the head delivers by extension, like this, it can tear the perineum or it can extend the episiotomy. So during labor, keep the head flexed till the biparietal diameter emerges from the introitus. Only when it emerges from the introitus, then only it does not occur, restitution occurs, and that is a happy ending to the labor. So this is what I wanted to tell you, how our knowledge of a mere classroom mechanism of labor helps in the management of labor. He has also told me, I don't know if we have the time. Vaidhi?
Yes, ma'am, we have.
Okay. To talk a little about occipitoposterior.
Yes, ma'am, please.
All right.
Yeah.
So occipitoposterior is not uncommon. Is not uncommon in nature. It occurs in almost 1/4 of the vertex presentations. And you must be knowing very well, especially the PG students, that 85 to 90% of these occipitoposterior, if you have 100, remaining 10 to 15, which will android pelvis, anthropoid, android and anthropoid pelvis deliver so easily in 85 to 90%. So the most common etiology of an occipitoposterior is a primigravida with a tense abdominal muscles. Okay, you know what the contour of a primi is as compared to a multi, which is a lax abdomen. So the fetus is not very happy with the back in the anterior. It's equally okay. It's equally okay. And therefore, the back tends to, which is the most common occipitoposterior. And with the termination, all right, I will not go into diagnosis. My problem is today mechanism of labor and the terminations. So here we have made a diagnosis of ROP. Now, what can be the terminations of labor for this particular patient? Yeah, it's okay. Can you see?
Yes, yeah.
What can be the terminations? If the patient has a good pelvis, good uterine contractions, average size baby, the patient can have a fairly quick, long internal rotation of 3/4 of a circle. Okay? Sorry. 3/4 of this side. All right? Yes. When it comes to turn, and then the back may turn up to the ROE position, and then the mechanism of labor is the same as we discussed. Rectal termination is the movement it takes, and the labor is prolonged. The labor is prolonged, goes on for some hours. Today we can hasten it with the Pitocin drip, etc. But a slow progress. And ultimately a delivery, there may be problems. The third is with a posterior, and this happens. Now the abnormal pelvis will come into play, like android, like anthropoid. All right. So if there is an ROP position, strangely the head does not rotate at all and remains in an oblique occipito posterior position. We call it a DTA or a deep transverse arrest. In a DTA, how do we manage a patient? You do an internal assess everything. I'm going to dwell more on the PV findings. And if you find that the pelvis is adequate, fetal heart is good, everything else is fine, then you can give a easy venous delivery and deliver the baby. But if you find that there is any fetal distress, molding, CPD, and so forth, she goes for a cesarean section. So this is the other one. Now, we had talked to you about Hart's rule that whichever part of the fetal body touches the pelvic floor first gets rotated internally. If the occiput touches the pelvic floor, it rotates internally. But here we are dealing with a deflexed head. Why? Because so it promotes deflection. Can you see? So this is a deflexed head, and the sinciput has touched the pelvic floor. Here is the pelvic floor. The sinciput has touched the pelvic floor, and therefore the sinciput rotates internally like this. When it rotates internally in this fashion, the occiput goes into the sacral hollow, and this is a direct occipito-posterior position. It can have two terminations. It can have a face to pubes delivery, or it can go into a persistent occipito-posterior position and obstructive labor. So if there is no CPD average size baby, and for some reason the head has gone backwards because of deflection, etc., remember that the axis is going abutting on the, as more and more force of uterine contractions along the axis, more and more of descent is happening, and ultimately the sinciput gets disengaged. So there is an intense flexion and then an extension. So the face comes on the pubis, and hence it is called a face to pubes delivery. Mind you, it's not a face presentation. It's part and parcel of an direct occipito-posterior. If you find that there is a CPD or anything else, that is a persistent OP, and an emergency cesarean needs to be done. There is one more termination, which I may tell you, is that in an occipito-posterior, the fetus is deflexed. It is a vertex presentation to start with labor, but because it is deflexed, the deflection becomes more and more, and ultimately it becomes a face. So during the course of labor, an OP position becomes a face, and this is what is known as a secondary face presentation with the mentum anterior. So that much about occipito-posterior. Lastly, Vaidiri has asked me to tell you a little about face presentation. It would take a long time. I only want to tell you what I said earlier, that it's an irregular part, molding is not possible, cord collapse is possible, early rupture of membranes are possible, but it is extreme flexion. How does a face present? When the occiput touches the back like this, and the face looks down. So this is a face presentation. It is ultimate extension, and what comes into play is the submento bregmatic diameter, which I am holding like this.
Right.
All right. And as I told you, extreme extension is possible when the back is posterior. So mento-anterior positions are common. Left mento-anterior, right mento-anterior. Because ROP becomes a mentum, left mento-anterior is more common than the right mento-anterior. Mento-posterior, the back is in front. Extension is not that good. It is not propitious for a vaginal delivery. Okay? So very few cases of mento-posterior will come through vaginally with a small baby. Even an average size baby may give you a problem. So it is if you have a mento anterior position in labor, what will happen? Everything is fine except for flexion. There is extension. Instead of extension, there is flexion. So we enter into labor with extension. The mentum touches the pelvic floor, gets rotated internally, and ultimately comes crowning occurs. The mentum hitches here and is borne by flexion. Okay, so all you have to do is to replace flexion with extension and extension with flexion, and that will be the delivery. I think, I hope I have not exceeded my time.
Not at all, ma'am.
Vaidehi.
Not at all, ma'am. It
And,
was simply
it was
outstanding.
It was indeed a very nice thing. I can't see the faces of all the nice young people who have probably come
See,
today.
there's so many of you, ma'am. You'll be very happy to know.
Yeah.
250 participants have logged in today.
And,
That's a
this is
huge
what
number.
I wanted to tell you all. Of course, in this short time, it's not possible to tell each and everything. But the gist of it and what interests us in practice, I have tried to pack in. Thank you very, very much. Let me again thank my Vaidehi, Rajasi, Swati, and all who have been so helpful and for having me here today.
It was our pleasure, ma'am. We are fortunate to have you today.
Truly, ma'am. Truly, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was really our pleasure that we had you as a speaker today, and you explained all the mechanism of labor in such a simple language and with all beautiful demonstration. We could very clearly see all the rotations and all the labor mechanism, and the voice was absolutely clear. So thank you very much for that, ma'am. And now,
The
friends,
demo
we
was clear. I asked a few people,
Yes,
and
ma'am,
they
yes.
all of them have replied that it was very clear.
it
So
was
I'm
very
not
clear,
as
ma'am.
soft-spoken as you made me out to be, Swati. Okay?
No, ma'am. Yeah,
Now
ma'am, it was
we are
really good.
shifting over to the next dress.
Yeah.
Swati,
Yes.
please.
Yeah. So basically now, friends, we have learned the mechanism of normal labor. My son is peeping in between. So now we have a condition wherein, suppose we have shoulder dystocia and a very obese patient or very healthy baby, and we are stuck up with that. So what exactly are we supposed to do is going to be explained by our next speaker, Dr. Anjali Kauthalkar, madam. So, madam, over to you.
Volume, audio nahi hai.
Just a minute. Parul, is she logged in with you?
She's logged in with my phone.
Okay.
Parul, unmute kar.
You cannot unmute, ma'am. I have done that. Parul, can you hear me?
Yes, Swati ma'am.
Okay, I can hear you too. So, Anjali ma'am, we are all set.
Okay, so we are starting with shoulder dystocia. Definition of shoulder dystocia is whenever there is a difference of more than 60 seconds between the delivery of the head and delivery of the shoulder. That is one definition. And secondly, it is also said that if you have to have do some maneuvers, then also you can label it as a case of shoulder dystocia. Now, why we need to know about shoulder dystocia is it is very rare, and you tend to forget what exactly needs to be done for that. That is number one. Secondly, though we feel that always with macrosomia, diabetic mothers only we can get shoulder dystocia, it's not so. In 50% of the cases, you can get shoulder dystocia even with an average size baby, and that will be almost unexpected scenario. So a labor room which is absolutely relaxed because the baby's head has delivered suddenly turns into a scenario where there is a complete confusion, and that confusion should not be there. That is the aim of this presentation. Now the first, remember how you diagnose shoulder dystocia is, what is happening is when the baby's head delivers.
Parul, your video is not on from the other mobile.
When the baby's head delivers, what happens with shoulder dystocia is there is a slight retraction of the baby's head inside, and this is called as a turtle sign. So this turtle sign tells us that it is a case of shoulder dystocia where the shoulders are above the pelvic brim. Now, in that case, what the first thing what needs to be done is called as we all know, it is called as a MacRoberts maneuver or legs up. So what needs to be done in that case is your assistants and your juniors or everybody should be aware. I am taking the help of this baby only to demonstrate how we should be doing this MacRoberts. That simultaneously what is to be done by your two assistants is you will be putting the legs absolutely over the abdomen, so that there is a complete flexion of the hip joint, and the flexion is of more than 90 degrees, and there is a slight abduction of the hip joint. So with this flexion and abduction, what happens is there will be increase in the antero-posterior diameter of the inlet. So first maneuver, whenever there is a turtle sign or whenever you feel that shoulder is not delivering, even when you are trying to give a downward gentle traction over the fetal neck, what you need to do is you call for help. You need neonatologist, anesthetist, you need multiple hands, you need your sister, you need one additional obstetrician if it is nearby. With that, the first maneuver which you do is MacRoberts or legs up maneuver, where what you do, I am again repeating it because it is the most important maneuver. If you do it, what will happen is in almost 60% of the cases, there will be a relief of this shoulder dystocia. So what you do in this is simultaneously you flex the hip joint, bring it nicely by the side of the abdomen. There has to be more than 90 degrees flexion of the hip joint, and there is a slight abduction of the hip joint. So it is almost like you are making the mother to be in a squatting position, which increases the antero-posterior diameter of the inlet. Can you all see? Swati?
Yes, ma'am, we are able to see, but there's a request to focus on the maneuver more.
Maneuver, yeah.
Yeah.
Now I am repeating it again. Simultaneously, both the lower extremities will be put by the side of the abdomen.
Very
so
clear.
That there is a complete flexion and abduction at the level of the hip joint. This is legs up maneuver, or it is also called as a MacRoberts maneuver. With that, the next maneuver, number 2, I will be demonstrating. With the MacRoberts, I will try and see whether the anterior shoulder delivers. But if it fails to do so, the next maneuver is a suprapubic pressure, which is also Rubin's 1 maneuver. It is also called as a Rubin's 1 maneuver. So from which side you will be giving the suprapubic pressure is, you have to give it from the side of the fetal back. How you know where the fetal back is? You concentrate here. Occiput is here. That means the fetal back is on my left side. So from that left side only, suprapubic pressure will be given. Now remember, each one of us has to remember, frontal pressure is absolutely contraindicated. If you give frontal pressure, there is more and more impaction of the shoulder against the pubic symphysis. So no frontal pressure. What you give is only the suprapubic pressure. It is given in a manner as we do CPR for cardiac compressions. Same way, it has to be given as a sustained compression over the pubic symphysis. It should be done for around every maneuver. You do it for 15 to 30 seconds because overall we have 4 minutes to deliver the baby. It is seen that if we deliver the shoulders within 4 minutes, usually the chances of fetal hypoxia are less. So suprapubic pressure is number 2. I'm trying to see whether it is helping me to deliver it out. Now with that also, if it is not, I'm not able to deliver out the shoulder, then what I do is an enter maneuver. Now the maneuver which I will be demonstrating, it is called as Rubin's 2 maneuver. For this, I will be using the hand which is towards the back.
I think Swati ma'am, somebody has shared his screen.
I request kindly stop sharing the screen. Thank you very much.
What I am using is a hand towards the side of the fetal back. Now in this case, the fetal back is on my left side. So I am using my left hand. And inserting the 2 fingers of the left hand, middle finger and index finger, in the posterior vagina. I am pressing the fetal back, and then I am going up to the posterior aspect of the anterior shoulder, and I am trying to push it to the opposite side so that it is stuck in AP diameter. I want to bring the shoulder in a slightly oblique diameter. With this, I want suprapubic pressure also. I will be repeating it once again. This is Rubin's 2 maneuver, where I am using the hand which is on the side of the fetal back. I am entering with 2 fingers in the posterior vagina. I am pressing the fetal back and I am coming to the posterior aspect of the anterior shoulder. And then I am trying to push it in an oblique diameter, and I am trying to see whether that helps me in the delivery of the shoulder. This is Rubin's 2 maneuver. Now, if this is also not successful, I will be using the fingers of the opposite hand. I'm using the right hand now, 2 fingers to the front of the posterior shoulder. Can you see this? Can you see?
Yes, ma'am. It's seen.
So my
Well seen.
anterior fingers are same. The anterior fingers are behind the
Parul, just
posterior
go a little
aspect of the
closer.
anterior shoulder, whereas my
Great.
these posterior fingers are at the anterior aspect of the posterior shoulder. With this, like a screw movement, I will be trying to dislodge the shoulders. This is called as wood screw maneuver. What I'm doing is a wood screw maneuver, like a screwing movement. I'm trying to see whether I can dislodge the shoulder in oblique diameter and whether that will lead to the delivery of the shoulder. If this also fails, the third maneuver is I'm removing my posterior fingers and I will be bringing the anterior fingers posteriorly till it is to the posterior aspect of posterior shoulder, and in the opposite direction now I'm pushing the shoulder. This is reverse wood screw maneuver.
Very clear, ma'am.
So what I'm telling you is, this is, you all practice when you are watching, you can practice. Imagine the fetal head is there, some circular object, and what you do is, anterior is the Rubin's 1, but you have to enter posteriorly and then only go anteriorly, because the space is more in the posterior part of the vagina. It is not possible directly to go anteriorly. So always you enter posteriorly, trace the back and then go anteriorly. This is Rubin's 2 maneuver. Rubin's 1 is suprapubic pressure. If I am using the other hand also, that will be Wood's screw maneuver. This is not successful. I am then using the anterior fingers posteriorly and in an opposite direction I am trying to rotate the shoulder. Then it is reverse wood screw maneuver. So these are the 3 maneuvers which are to be done. Each maneuver should not be done for more than 30 seconds, so 15 to 30 seconds. Now, what is more important to understand is, whenever we do all these maneuvers, and even if the baby delivers with a generous episiotomy, the possibility of brachial plexus injury is very high. And another maneuver which is supposed to be associated with less risk of brachial plexus injury is delivery of the posterior arm. So you can try directly delivery of the posterior arm even before trying Rubin's 2 wood screw and reverse wood screw. What is to be done for the delivery of the posterior arm is, now you use the hand towards the baby's chest. So here I will be using my right hand. You introduce the hand in a cone-shaped manner and try to palpate the posterior arm and trace it till you palpate the elbow. Then you give a pressure at the elbow joint so that you can grasp the forearm and then bring it, sweep it across the fetal chest and sweep it across the fetal head and deliver out the posterior arm. Once you deliver out the posterior arm, there is sudden increase in the space which is available, and then you are likely to deliver the anterior shoulder also. Now remember that whenever we deliver the posterior arm, I will be repeating once again, it is very, very important that you should not be grasping the upper arm. You should not be grasping the part above the elbow joint. That will lead to the fracture of the humerus if you try to pull it like that. It's very, very important to go till the cubital fossa, give pressure, flex the arm, hold the forearm and sweep it across the chest and bring it out. This is associated with least risk of having brachial plexus injuries. But so many times it happens that you are not very fortunate. Even if you try to go, there is no space and delivery of the posterior arm is also not possible. In that case, what you do next is a Gaskin's maneuver. Gaskin is where you ask the patient to turn and roll the patient on all fours. So this is turn the patient and roll the patient on all fours. This should ideally, it is said that whenever we are taking prenatal classes, we should tell our patients what do you mean by that? हमको बोलना है कि आपको उल्टा सोना है. Now in this case, the shoulder which is towards the ceiling, that needs to be delivered first. So again, whatever maneuvers we have done, I will try to just see, and so many times it happens that with the gravitational force, the shoulders which were stuck previously, with the Gaskin maneuver, the anterior shoulder delivers out in many cases. If it is not so, then I will again go as a Rubens, and I will go for a wood screw and a reverse wood screw. So this is the Gaskin, where you do the same maneuvers, but you do it by asking the patient to be in a prone position. It is also called as a rolling the patient on all fours.
So it can be practiced in first stage of labor also for all the cases, so that it will not be difficult if you tell the patient on the time of shoulder dystocia.
Now after this, what is to be done? Now till that time, usually by this time, the 4-minute golden period is usually over, and you don't expect the baby to be alive by this time. But what, when I read the literature, what I have decided is there are many options. As Zuvenelli is a very popular maneuver, where you have to, what you have to do is you have to again take the head to the position before the restitution. That means de-restitution is to be done, flexion is to be done, and then you hold the head up and then do the cesarean section. So that is introduction of the head inside the uterine cavity. But when there is an impaction, so many times it might not be easy to do that. Zuvenelli also is not very easy. So in that case, what I find as a easier option is you do a cesarean section, you give a lower segment incision as hysterotomy, and per abdominally the obstetrician has to rotate the shoulder, and after the rotation of the shoulders in oblique diameter, you deliver the baby vaginally. So this is vaginal delivery of the baby with the help of a hysterotomy, which is an option, which is a last option, which is associated with less maternal and complications, or less third degree, fourth degree tears or bladder injury. All that will be less as compared to the others. So this is a scenario which is not very easy to tackle, but if the whole team is prepared, what is very important is we should have the drills for shoulder dystocia, because our whole team, sisters, juniors, seniors, everybody is on same page. If I say I want legs up, everybody knows what I mean by that. If I say suprapubic pressure, from where to give, height, how to give, because each second matters. What we have is only the 4 minutes. Thank you very much. Now we will go for the next reel of cord prolapse.
Thank you, ma'am. It was very beautifully
One
demonstrated,
more
ma'am.
thing I forgot is,
Yes.
one more option is where you can have a sling. You can put a catheter around the axilla. If you are not able to deliver out the posterior arm by putting your hand inside, what you do is you take one catheter or a feeding tube, and you just make it around the axilla. And with that, you apply a forceps, and then you give a downward pull. Now, this will help you for the delivery of the posterior shoulder. This is called as using a sling. This is use of a sling to deliver out the posterior shoulder. We'll go to the cord prolapse as a next stream.
Welcome, Savita Somalwar, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So, cord prolapse, there are various conditions where there can be cord prolapse. I am not going into details. What are they? And actually, the cord prolapse is a nightmare for every obstetrician. So, going to a case scenario, a 30-year-old patient who is 4th gravida, 2 para, 1 abortion. She comes to the labor room with a 36 weeks pregnancy, and on examination, she is having good uterine contractions. The fetal heart is good. On PV examination, the cervix is almost fully effaced, 3 centimeters dilated, and at -1 station. Okay, and the membranes are present. And she is for observation for a vaginal delivery for further progress. After 1 hour, she had a sudden rupture of membranes, and then the sister calls to madam, she had a rupture of membranes. You do PV examination, she is 5 to 6 centimeter dilated, cervix is fully effaced, and you feel that there is a cord prolapse. The cord is lying in the vagina. So The first thing what I will do is I will try to push the head above and I will call for help. Sister, inform the anesthetist,
Aru?
inform Dr. Kauthalkar, inform the pediatrician, and give me one pillow. So I want to lift the presenting part apart from the cord. So I will take the help of pillow, or if your labor table is having, you can do the deep Trendelenburg, that can be done. Or if it is not there, there can be option of keeping the pillows. Okay. Meanwhile, there is a time for anesthetist equipment to come. I can start the intrauterine resuscitation with sister, start oxygen, start IV fluid. Okay. Now, as Dr. Kauthalkar has arrived, madam, please check for the fetal heart.
Fetal heart is good. It is 130 and regular.
Okay. Now you catheterize with bladder with a Foley's catheter and inflate it with 500 ml of saline. Okay. So that I'm inflating. So it will again help me in pushing the presenting part up and reducing the compression.
I have pushed 500 ml in the bladder.
Okay. Sister, see whether the trolley and the anesthetist are there.
Savita, it might take another 10 minutes as another procedure is going on on the operation.
Okay. As there is no oxytocin, otherwise if there would have been oxytocin, I will ask to stop the oxytocin. And another thing is, as she is having good uterine activity, even without oxytocin, I will ask to give an injection terbinafine 0.25 milligrams subcutaneously till the time, so that it will decrease the compression of the cord.
I have given 0.25 milligrams terbutaline subcutaneously.
Okay.
One dose I have given, and now I can feel that the contractions are not very strong.
Have you checked again a fetal heart?
Fetal heart is still 140, around 140 and regular. So should we shift the patient to OT now?
Now the
Have we
anesthetist.
done the intrauterine fetal resuscitation?
Yes, we have given her oxygen. We have given her IV fluids first, around 500 ml, Ringerlactate. And we have given her terbutaline also. That will relax the uterus and decrease the chances of cord compression. Now,
whether you will remove your fingers and do the cesarean, Savita?
No, I will keep the fingers like that. We will shift the patient to OT now. You start cesarean along with the sister, and I will not remove my fingers till the baby is out.
So I have delivered out the baby, and baby is crying well.
So the outcome is good. This was because of the coordinated efforts of all of them. So again, this cord prolapse, everyone should be aware in your labor room, starting from you can take help of sister, because in private, there are less people are there. So you can mobilize one person to call everyone, and you act as a team leader and give instructions to all. And do not remove your fingers. That is very important thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. It was truly a very, very wonderful presentation. For a while,
Swati, don't you think we have to acknowledge the great efforts of our photographer today?
Yes, ma'am.
She was squatting, dipping, sitting down. Thank you, Parul, for the wonderful relay.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Parul. Thank you so much. We'll take the questions now. I am changing the settings to those who want to ask a question. They can unmute themselves and then ask a question, but kindly only those who want to ask the question unmute themselves, because otherwise we'll have a lot of echo. So now the settings have been changed. You can unmute yourself and ask the question. We have all the panelists with us, all the speakers with us now. Yes, Hitendra Rajput. We can't hear you. Okay, someone trying to ask question, kindly unmute yourself.
They can write, they can type in the chat box. I think that would be easier.
Yeah, they can also put in the
typed already, Swati.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Typed in the chat box. Is there any role of maternal episiotomy in shoulder dystocia?
Maternal episiotomy.
Yes, maternal episiotomy. It is what is now the Western episiotomy, if required. But I think for our scenario, when you want to introduce the hand inside, you want to remove the posterior arm, generous episiotomy is to be given. It should be generous.
Madam, madam. My question is maternal symphysiotomy. Symphysiotomy.
No, symphysiotomy is also written in the books, but it is written that nowadays it is not being done with a risk to the bladder injury, which is more with a symphysiotomy, and we have less and less number of trained obstetricians who can perform the symphysiotomy. And what I feel safer is you do abdominal hysterectomy, rotate the shoulder and deliver baby vaginally if nothing works.
That means abdominal rescue you want
Yeah,
to say.
abdominal rescue, because symphysiotomy, we are always worried about a bladder injury whenever we do go for a, whether madam has any experience. I don't have any participant. If any of the participants has any experience, they can also comment. Anybody has done symphysiotomy can comment.
No. And there is one more question for you, Dr. Savita. Bladder has to be drained in cord prolapse? They're asking.
No, bladder should be filled up, not drained. Because if you fill the bladder, the pressure on the presenting part will be less, and that will decrease the compression on the cord, and the presenting part will be lifted up. So bladder should not be drained, it should be filled, and the clamp should be applied to the catheter. Around 500 to 700 ml. You will have to insert.
So there are questions in the chat box also.
Terbutaline dose is 0.25 milligrams subcutaneously.
Subcutaneously.
What if it is not available because there is issue of terbutaline availability? So what do you do in that case?
This do the like resuscitation with IV fluids, and we give oxygen only,
Okay.
because
There is no-
most of the time it is not available cerebrally.
Okay.
Savita, my question to you. Bladder we should fill up partially.
Yes, around 500 to 700 ml.
Okay.
Ma'am, there's a question in the chat box. Maneuvers in shoulder dystocia are to be done in the order you described, or does it depend on any other factor too? This is from Harshika
Then I
Bhagat.
will, this is a very important question. I will answer it once again for all. First is we have to go for a legs up, and we have to go for suprapubic pressure. These are mandatory now, suprapubic pressure and legs up. Once that is not successful, either you can directly go for a delivery of posterior arm if you find that space is there posteriorly, or you can go for Rubin's wood screw and reverse wood screw. So these two are in the algorithm at the same level. First is legs up, second is suprapubic pressure. For third maneuver, both are at same level. It is up to the person who is present over there to introduce the hand, feel whether there is a space, and you can go up to the elbow and deliver out the posterior arm first. Or if it is difficult, then to go for a Rubin's first. It depends. Both are at the same level. Then you go for Gaskin. Then you go for the rest of the maneuvers.
Okay, great. What about bilateral episiotomy? What about bilateral episiotomy?
Yes, everything is good till the baby cried. Because what we are doing, worried about is a space crunch. You find less space is there. Generous episiotomy is also not helping you. Rather than having a 3rd degree, 4th degree tear, it's better to have a bilateral. It is also a very good suggestion.
Another question is, in hysterotomy, what type of incision over the uterus to deliver the baby vaginally?
It is usual incision. It is lower segment only. What you are helping here is, what we give a suprapubic pressure, and if you try to rotate the shoulder is not successful, here directly you are touching the shoulder and you are making it in an oblique diameter.
Okay.
So the incision is same.
Great.
Really-
Dr. Please mute your audio, please. Let us first take the questions in the chat box. When to deflate bladder during cesarean, at Pfannenstiel's incision or at what step?
After the baby is delivered, because that will be okay, because that will reduce the compression.
Where will you approach?
Okay. Financial incision only. So you will have to check for the fetal heart. If it is okay, you can drain it and then give the incision. But if there is a problem, then you will have to be very careful not to injure the bladder.
Dr. Sharmin is asking you, what exactly is the role of keeping finger per vaginally till shifting to the OT?
You should keep your fingers gently. Don't compress the cord. Okay. Don't manipulate the cord, and don't try to reposit the cord. It is very important.
Another important question is, what will be the type of anesthesia in cord prolapse cesarean sections?
General anesthesia. It is general anesthesia usually, because it is given fast and you can deliver the baby. There is no time to give positions, final anesthesia.
Okay. Buhariwala madam, this is a question for you. In DTA, if LSCS is to be done, then what is the easiest way to deliver the baby? Cesarean section in DTA.
Cesarean section in DTA, the head is not going to be right down. The arrest is at the level of the ischial spines generally. So you can even go below the head and deliver it. If it is too much impacted, in that case, you may have to take a higher incision and even do a breech delivery.
Okay.
If the bladder is distended, if the lower uterine segment is very much distended, the bladder is pulled up, then in that case, it is much better to make the incision higher in the lower uterine segment. If you go lower in the lower uterine segment, you are very close to the bladder walls, and sometimes you may even get into the vagina because it is so much stretched out when there is an obstructive labor.
Okay. Dr. Kauthakar, this is a question for you. Any role of cleidotomy in shoulder dystocia?
Cleidotomy is given as a last once the baby, there is an intrauterine death is usually there. By the time suppose you are not able to deliver out and there is an intrauterine death, then in that case as a destructive procedure we learned about cleidotomy. I have not performed cleidotomy in any case, but it has been described. Same as symphysiotomy, cleidotomy is a last resort.
Okay, ma'am, this is for you, Buhariwala madam. If we come to diagnose face presentation mento anterior, we should let her deliver vaginally, or what we should be careful of in such a situation?
If it is a mento anterior, what you have to assess is CPD. If in a face presentation, what you have to assess is a CPD. Supposing the pelvis is good, it is an average size baby, mento anterior can definitely have a vaginal delivery. There is no problem. Usually they are multis. Is it clear?
Yes. Another question for cord prolapse. Within how much time should the baby deliver after cord prolapse?
As soon as possible, ideally. But till the cord pulsation and fetal heart is there, you will have to start preparing, because if she is fully dilated and the conditions are fulfilled, you can apply the forceps like lower outlet. But if it is not there, you will have to immediately shift and do the cesarean section as early as possible.
Decision to delivery.
It should be category 1, less than 30 minutes ideally, but it should be as early as possible.
Right. Dr. Kauthakar, as shoulder dystocia can occur in average size baby too, are there any clues that will help anticipate dystocia?
What has been described is you can measure the bisacromial diameter by ultrasonography. In the last sonography, which is done in the last trimester, you can go for a measurement of bisacromial diameter. Some studies have been done even to measure the distance between the cheeks ultrasonographically to know whether there is a possibility. But all the studies are inconclusive at present, and there is no definite sign that this patient is likely to go. So that is why what we say is it is usually unexpected in 50% of the cases. You can't anticipate it by any ultrasonography measurement or per abdominal examination. You can't anticipate it in most of the cases.
Okay.
May I add something?
Yes,
here?
ma'am, please.
Because one of the patients who can get this is an IDM patient. It's in front of a diabetic mother, where the bisacromial diameter may be normal. It's not, the skeleton is not large for this.
Sure.
It is the shoulder which is.
Yes.
If the patient is not well controlled, blood sugars are very tightly controlled, it is an adequate for gestational age baby. But here you will have a disproportionately large for dates baby.
Right.
Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So the shoulders will be wide because of the fat which is around that.
Right.
So this is one place where we have to be careful. Let us say that we are allowing a vaginal delivery to a GDM patient. The cervix is fully dilated, the head is down, let us say +2 station, +3 station also. and it is delayed to station. Beware of applying any instrumental delivery because you will be able to pull out the head, but the shoulders will get stuck. So I wouldn't say go ahead and do a cesarean where there is a delay in the second stage of labor in a diabetic mother. Yeah, this is a practical point.
Great point, ma'am. Thank you. During LSCS, if baby is stuck in direct OP position and uterus is retracted over the baby and there is difficulty in delivering head, what are the other options for such a condition? Baby is stuck in direct OP, uterus retracted over the baby and there is difficulty in delivering the head. Then how do we proceed?
At cesarean.
Yes, during cesarean.
It's cesarean.
Yeah.
So if the head is right down, as I told you in an occipito-posterior, it appears to be very much down, but it may not be. And it will be difficult to reach below that. It's much better because the lower limbs will be right in front of you. There is no harm in just holding the legs and pulling down. Remove reach first and the body. This is the simplest method.
Great, ma'am. Thank you. Can we use, Dr. Sumalwar, can we use wet gauze with fingers in vagina in case of a cord prolapse?
It is said that you can use the wet warm packs to the cord. You can use wet warm packs. You can use.
पता नहीं किसी का ऑडियो शायद ऑन है. Okay, if cord pulsations are absent, will you do LSCS or wait for normal delivery?
Then we will wait for normal delivery. We will wait as the cord pulsations are not there. It means the fetus is dead inside. We will wait for the vaginal delivery.
Okay. Does every woman in labor less than 140 centimeters, an average size baby or small for gestational baby, has a chance of shoulder dystocia?
Shoulder dystocia, if the baby weight is 2.5 to 4 kg, and once the weight is more than 4 kg, it jumps 10 in 1000.
And then
Possibility. So it is unpredictable.
Swati, I don't think all audios are muted because we can hear some children speaking in.
I just changed the settings. They are all on mute mode now.
Okay. So the next question is, if it's a breach with cord prolapse, how to proceed? This is a question from Dr. Pragati Khadatkar.
Okay. Which breach? Actually, if there is a footling, there is a high chance and you should go for cesarean section. And in complete breach with again the less dilatation and the cord prolapse is there, better is to do cesarean section.
Ragini, this question has been answered. If the terbutaline is unavailable, what other drugs to be used? So nothing. We don't have any option right now. Okay, Dr. Indrayani is asking, in posterior asynclitism, how much time do we wait to take the next step?
In posterior asynclitism, let us say that the patient is doing well. You can wait for even 2 hours. You are doing the next PV examination. If it persists, if molding has started, if there are any other signs, early fetal distress, one should definitely go for a cesarean. If the posterior parietal bone is going backwards and the sagittal suture is coming in the midline, it is a good sign. One can proceed with the vaginal delivery.
Great. Can we do repositioning of the prolapse cord by lifting head with fingers?
We can push the presenting part, but do not do anything to the cord. Do not fiddle the cord. Otherwise, there can be problems. Spasm and the baby can have a problem.
Okay, any one of you can
As
take.
we demonstrated, it's better to see for the fetal well-being by per abdominal auscultation rather than to try to see whether pulsations are present. That will lead to handling of the cord and spasm of the vessels, and baby will have a hypoxia. So do not touch the cord. Just lift up the presentation above as high as possible.
Dr. Kiran Dhurve is asking, what is the difference between Patwardhan and modified Patwardhan method during cesarean section? Patwardhan or modified? Any one of you can take this.
In Patwardhan, you are removing the one shoulder, then another shoulder like that. And there is...
If you can show.
So if the back is anterior, then you can deliver one shoulder, and the assistant should be good so that he will give the traction and you can deliver the another shoulder, then back and the legs in and bridge, and last is head. But if there is a back is posterior, then there are other options. Either you can go for bridge, or you can remove one arm, upper arm, then another leg, then this leg, this arm and the lower leg and the back. This is the modified. This is the modified Patwardhan for the back posterior.
I think bringing down the legs is far better.
What,
And
madam?
quicker.
Bringing down the leg.
Bridge.
Okay, can we pack vagina in cord prolapse gently?
No.
We should not, because that can lead to compression again. So we should not handle the cord.
Okay,
Keep the fingers there only. Don't remove, and act as a team leader and instruct everyone and shift to the OT as early as possible.
okay. So do you take informed consent before delivery of or all fetal maternal complications of intrauterine fetal death in cases for trial of suspected borderline shoulder dystocia? I don't know, I'm not very clear about this question. I don't know, the name is not appearing. Can you please rephrase this question? We are not able to understand what you want to ask. Do you take informed consent before delivery or all fetal maternal complications of...
Maybe I can answer that.
Get it.
So the question is whether we need to take an informed consent. Inform is you give complete information, what procedure, what are the complications of procedure, whether there is any other alternative available, and then you take a consent is informed. There is no time to take an informed consent in case of a shoulder dystocia. So the consent which is taken is called as an express oral consent. What we take is an express consent and express oral consent. Because with the inform means you are informing about, number one is what is the procedure, number two, what are the advantages, disadvantages and complications. So the third is time to explain all these things, then only it will be informed. So consent in shoulder dystocia should be an express oral consent.
Can we try roll on all fours at onset? I don't understand.
Onset of labor.
At onset, okay.
No, what he means is before legs up, can we go for that? Caspian.
Can we try roll on all fours at onset? होगा शायद ये question.
Onset.
हाँ.
Shoulder dystocia. The onset of shoulder dystocia. Onset of labor.
Question tab 2810 is asking this question.
Achieve the delivery of the shoulder. So gaskin or rolling the patient on all fours should not be the first step. First step should always be to have a macrobursts and suprapubic pressure.
And then the same with the person who's asking, who asked you about info is asking that, okay, so letter can be
Application. What you document is the time delivery interval between delivery of the head and delivery of the shoulder. That is number one. Number two is which maneuver you did, which result of the shoulder. And third will be the Davies. How was the Davies has to be documented. So as I said, presentation in a case of shoulder dystocia, that documentation is the time interval between delivery of head to shoulder, maneuver which resulted in the delivery, what maneuvers were tried, and how was the fetal neonatal condition after the delivery.
Okay, I think we are done with the question. Alka, I think you wanted to ask something. Can you ask now? Alka Mukherjee?
Ma'am, she is not, she's muted actually. Can't find her.
Can you? I think someone answered. Everybody, ma'am, they are appreciating your presentation and everybody is giving a big thumbs up.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here.
We forward
2 minutes.
Corona for last 2 hours. Yeah.
Fantastic session. I think, as Madam very rightly said, for 1 hour at least, we were completely out of COVID-19, and which was a very welcome break. Thank you so much to all the faculties today. About the, I'm short of to told me how to be and all the details. It just brought all the nostalgic days back. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. For her, I must say one thing, that only teachers of excellence will teach you with a mix of technical scientific knowledge and a right mix of philosophy, ethics, and spirituality.
Absolutely.
It is very
What
humbling
other
to hear
teacher
that.
will tell you that a universal flexion of a fetus is how we are born humbly in this world, and that is how we shall leave this world. I think it is only this cadre of teachers who teaches us these values when we come out as practitioners. A big salute to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for today's talk.
Whatever you said, it's very humbling. Thank you so much, Rajasi.
And about Kauthalkar madam and Somalwar madam, they both also have been my teachers. They have seen me small as an intern, as a undergraduate, and I think they are wonderful teachers. I owe all that I have learned today to all their demos and tutorials and lectures. A good teacher can inspire hope, ignite imagination, and instill love of learning. That's what we learn from both of them. Thank you so much, madam, for your talks. It was wonderful. A great demonstration of very difficult and scary obstetric emergencies. Thank you once again. And great thanks to Swati Sarda, our chairperson of digital meetings,
Thank you,
who
ma'am.
week after week has been very laboriously and sincerely managing all the efforts, all the technical details to bring you all a flawless experience.
Thank you, ma'am.
And most of all, those viewers, those 250 plus viewers today who have logged online and have enjoyed this academic feast, I must thank you all for encouraging us with your response. And we will keep going ahead with your blessings and best wishes. So keep logging in and keep signing in and keep waiting for the next.
One second.
Rajasi, one moment. What about, last but not the least, our beautiful photographer?
Oh yes. Parul, can I see your picture once more, please?
Parul, you can come inside and say hi.
So meet our young dynamic member of NOGS, Dr. Parul Sauji. Thank you so much. The intricacies with which you held your camera
It was
gave us
beautiful.
the entire experience, Parul. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. All
Thank you
angles.
so much.
Very steady hand.
May I say thank you to Vaidehi, to Rajasi, to Swati, and also to Parul for asking us over today. It's been a very interesting time, and thanks to all the audience who have been very nice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for these encouraging words. Thank you. I think, Swati, we can keep logged in for some time. Ma'am wants to just go through the questions and the comments in the chat
Okay.
box.
Okay.
If you leave the meeting, we won't be able to see. The rest can leave. Thank you all so much for joining in today. Looking forward to your active participation next week, as this week as well. We are coming up with please drop in your suggestions, what all you would like to learn henceforth. We will try our best to include everything that is possible. We are looking forward to further suggestions. Thank you very much.
Those who wish to leave can leave the meeting.
Yeah. Thank you so much. The meeting is over. We are just doing the last some admin work.
I'll stop recording also, ma'am.
Yeah.